just go with the flow. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Frank About Health. This is a unique situation we are now under. I have my guest on the phone with me who has a problem getting into his terminal that allows us to have a face-to-face conversation. But for those of you listening on talkradio.nyc right now, this is, after all, an audio show as well. So I will just make sure that when he starts talking about his circumstances that brings him to Frank About Health today, I will put the phone right next to the microphone so that you can get his story. But today we're going to talk with Mr. John Beyer, who is the author of the book Live a Little Better. He talks about his journey through struggles and neglect and alcoholism, and ultimately shows how he gets sober and begins to succeed on levels that he never imagined, including marrying his love of his life, Amy, having his daughter, Lauren, and his other son that also has a story of his own that we're going to share on today's episode. Today's episode is entitled Live a Little Better, and it's a journey from sobriety to success. And the main topic in this episode is that of alcoholism. However, we will touch upon autism, and we will also touch upon just overall mental health. The thing about John Beyer is that not only is he the owner and founder of Men on the Move, he is also the author of the book Live a Little Better, which is available on Amazon. And he's also a musician and songwriter, and we will play some of his tunes throughout the show. As far as the disclaimer is concerned, this is a case study on an individual who also dealt with disruption and managed to do something about it. That's been the theme on this show for the last several weeks. And more importantly, it is not a talking point that is subject to any conclusions or views of talkradio.nyc or of Frank About Health, but it's an example, case in point, where we can be able to learn from our struggles and even master them and make them into better opportunities for others. That all being said, we are going to go through the whole technical challenges here of passing on the conversation into the microphone, but I also do want to get in touch, Jesse, behind the scenes. If there is anything you can do to try to help John get on the show, by all means. Do you even need his number? I can give that to you so you can call him and try to work through all the mechanics. But otherwise, I guess if nothing can be done at this point, since we are now live, we will just move forward and go with the show in the format we're now doing it in. That all being said, let me give you a little overview of who John Beyer is. He is a singer-songwriter from New York, the founder of Men on the Move, top moving and storage company on the East Coast, an advocate for autism awareness and support, and has served as chairman of the Long Island chapter of Autism Speaks, a founding board member of Spectrum Designs Foundation, and a founding member of the David Center. He currently lives on Long Island with his wife and daughter, and they insisted he tell his story. Now, welcome to Frank About Health, John. I hope you can hear me. All right, great.
Well, the difficulties are on my side, but I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. I mean, again, the talkradio.nyc audience is audio streaming, so they're just hearing you, which is fine. I guess our YouTube audience and LinkedIn audience won't get a chance to hear you, but they will musically, if you know what I mean, throughout the commercial breaks as well as throughout the rest of the show. So I'm going to pass the phone onto the microphone so you can now begin to really start explaining to the audience, listeners out there, what your whole story has been in your struggle with alcoholism. I think obviously by having that background, we can really go deeper into your book and into the other creative outlets that you've manifested after you became sober. Sound good?
I mean, I was born into, my parents were both bona fide alcoholics. I don't like calling somebody else an alcoholic, but in their case, she would argue that point. They were, and I always wondered, is it genetic or environmental? But in my case in particular, it really doesn't matter because I had the genes and certainly the environment. Um, and but my parents got the fights and the discourse and the unmanageability, the insanity affected them, very early on in their marriage. And when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, they were getting fights, and police were called, and clothing was thrown about all over the lawn, and so on and so forth. And they wound up getting separated. And my father was a very successful photographer at one point. He started to fail at that a little bit because of the drinking, and money got tight, and they got a divorce as a matter of course, as Billy Joel lyric says.
Right.
Yeah, but we moved. We lived in a building at one time in Riverdale where you would call up and they would bring the car around for you, and a white glove would open the door for you. I remember that as a little kid, and that quickly changed. That changed overnight. I think they were living beyond their means at the time, and they. What happened was that they went broke and got divorced, and we moved to Lefrak City in Queens, New York, which is a huge complex of 20 18-story buildings with 15 or 18,000 people living there at any given time. And it was great. It was pretty nice when we moved there, but it wasn't. Nobody was bringing the car around for you and opening your white glove. Overnight, eviction notices were on the door. Was the standard.
Wow.
No food in the refrigerator. Some neighbors anonymously called Child Protective Services. They would come and visit to make sure I wasn't being abused. I was neglected, but I wasn't abused. My dad, who lived only miles away in Queens, over a 5-year period, I saw maybe a half dozen or a dozen times, it seems like. And it was a very sad situation. I had holes in my sneakers. I used to take the leftover baseball cards from my friends flipping baseball cards and put them in the bottom of my sneakers. And so one day when I was 11, maybe 12 years old, I went across the street to the grocery store. There was a Wall-Bomb shopping grocery store across the street. And I started helping people put their older people and women with little kids maybe. I would help them put their groceries in the trunk of their car, and I would bring the cart back, and they would give me a quarter, and then I started picking up the debris in the parking lot, and I was really corralling all the wagons. One day the manager came out and said, "What are you doing?" And I was scared. I was intimidated for a big guy. And I said, "I'm just trying to make it faster for people to be able to pull in and pull out. The parking lot is crowded. And I'm just trying to earn some tips here." And he handed me $2.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that. And it was so empowering. And I think about it later on in life. I didn't realize it then, but I really actually created my first job. And I made money. And I went out and got pizza.
Yeah.
And it was a huge treat, and completely ungoverned household, and that's what it was like. And I watched alcohol ruin my parents' lives. I have 2 older sisters. They had left, and for their own reasons, and for those reasons really. And I understood it. They were a little bit older than me. I saw them all the time. They were great. My sisters. They helped raise me. But they left, and it was just me and my mom at this point, and she was in very bad shape. And I remember I vowed I would never drink, I would never become an alcoholic.
Right.
And I did, somehow. What happened was in the stairwells of Lefrak City when I was a little bit older, I'm in the stairwells with 2 of my buddies, and we did shotguns of beer. And that's when you puncture a hole in the can, and then you turn it, you start to drink it, and then you flip the the little flip there, and the beer gushes down your throat, and you get a buzz quickly that way. And
Oh,
I did
wow.
that. Yeah, I did that. And there, I drank every drop. It didn't spill anything. And they're spilling it, and I'm trying to catch it. And immediately, as soon as we gathered ourselves, I said, "Hey, let's get tall boys. Let's get the big ones." And thinking is that I just drank differently from the get-go. I really did. I just drank like a pig, and I was off to the races. When I was 21, my sister dragged me to my sister Denise dragged me to a GI doctor on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And I didn't meet the doctor yet. I drank the malt, and they do the X-rays, and I'm in one of those robes where it's split down the back, and I'm clinging to the back of the robe, and the nurse says make a left and a left, and the doctor's office is down the hall. And I do that, and I'm standing in the doorway, and there are two doctors with their back to me, and they're looking at a light box, at an X-ray with a light box, and I clear my throat, and I say, "Hi, my name is John Beyer." And they turn and look at me, and one of them says, "You're John Beyer? We were expecting somebody 80 years old." I was 21.
Oh, well, how did they confuse you?
The X-ray showed such damage to my stomach at 21 that they thought they were dealing with somebody 80 years old.
And that's all
That
because
was
of the
my
alcohol?
X-ray up on the light box.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So they gave me a prescription to heal my stomach, and I wound up drinking another 5 years. That's what an alcoholic does.
Right.
So I became an alcoholic, and I dated a girl in high school. Her name was Amy, and she went away to college. I went away to college, but we always still were going out with each other, even though we saw each other, saw other people at times and things like that. And she always stuck by me. And I wound up getting sober, walking into the rooms of AA on March 31st, 1986. And I went to my first meeting, and she was back at her apartment cooking dinner. And I walked into the apartment, and before the door closed behind me, I said, "Our whole lives are going to change."
Huh.
And they did. And they did. And I've been going ever since.
But that's wonderful. In the meantime, though, I'm kind of curious, were you completely separated from your parents and your sisters and practically homeless, or were you able to still?
No, I see that working and making money. When I had that experience at Wallbombs, and I realized I could work and make money myself. And that, like I said, was very empowering. And I always managed to do that, except when it started getting really bad with the drinking. So I did go from place to place, and I had all kinds of jobs. I drove a cab for a while when I was 18 years old in South Jamaica, Queens, which was a very rough neighborhood at the time.
Right.
And I was a bartender for many years, which is not a good place for somebody with a drinking problem to work.
Right.
And I got introduced to cocaine, to a ton of cocaine, and this was early 80s when this was all happening, and I was a mess. My father died when I was 21.
Okay.
He died. He was only 56. And the doctor said to him, his name was John also, and he said to him, "John, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die." And he said, "I know." And he stopped drinking for a year. He white-knuckled it. And exactly New Year's to New Year's. And he picked up on New Year's Eve again. Yeah. And on March 31st, on March 17th, on St. Patrick's Day, just 10 weeks later, he went into the hospital. It took him 10 weeks of drinking again to go into the hospital. And he wound up dying this long, slow, horrible death of heart failure and cirrhosis of the liver, just 9 months after he picked up the drink again. Oh, and wow. I saw it, and I kept on drinking. And my mom at that time, ironically, stopped drinking and got sober. And she was amazing, actually. They had become very friendly. They were happily divorced.
Wow.
They both had significant others, long-term significant others, but they were very friendly. And unfortunately, she smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day. And 3 years after she stopped drinking, she developed lung cancer. And then she died when I was 24, which was a long, slow, horrible death. Yeah. And it was, I was 24 years old. I'm in the throes of some deep alcoholism already. And I'm experiencing these deaths. And it was pour me a drink.
Mm.
Yeah.
It became your go-to during depression and anxiety and everything else.
Yeah, you go to mind-altering substances when you're hurting in pain or have voids,
mm-hmm.
And that solution winds up becoming a bigger problem, and you realize you're just masking all the real problems underneath.
Okay.
And,
well, John, we're about to take our first break, but now that we've had the real gripping story in the first 13 to 15 minutes of the program, we want to spend the rest of the time talking about how you definitely have worked through all of it. We'll start talking about your book in the next segment. We'll play your music after the third segment. And then at the same time, we'll talk about all your advocacy work that you're doing, both for autism as well as for Alcoholics Anonymous, as well as Men on the Move. We want to learn about how you've made your way from that experience, first getting that $2 to buy that slice of pizza, to doing what you do every day, day in, day out at this point, right? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned right here on Frank About Health as we are here with John Beyer talking about how to live a little better. We're learning about John's story from survival, sobriety, and success. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey everybody, with the magic of technology, I have John Beyer with me here on WhatsApp, and we are broadcasting it on video as well for all of you out there who just heard his interesting story that he had to undergo as a youngster, and then really overcome not just alcoholism and substance abuse, but to really understand what it's like to work hard for the money to really survive and thrive eventually. I also showed during the commercial break an image of his music. He's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, as well as Amazon Music. We will hear some of his music later on. But his website, johnbeyermusic.com, indicates not only the book, Live a Little Better, which is available on Amazon, Kindle at half price, but the point of the matter is you're really getting to resonate with his own story, especially if you have any family or friends that are loved ones that have an alcoholic story as well, that they can probably learn from or mirror after so that they can find their way to thrive and recover from that. Again, if you are dealing with disruption in your life, what are you going to do about it? That's what I've been trying to do right here on Frank About Health for the last few weeks. And this is an interesting story for me because while I guess you could say, fortunately, I have not had to deal with alcoholism. I have had to deal with a life of epilepsy. I've had to deal with other kinds of hardships, sometimes burdened by people, so-called friends, family members that really are more narcissistic in nature and don't have an understanding of whatever advocacy plans that I have, that they're more tools for their purpose rather than for the greater good. But this platform that I've had for almost 150 episodes now has been a real measure of how I can individuate from that kind of chaos. And more on that a little later. On this part of the show, I want to discuss a little bit about the book with John, particularly how it's broken out and what the reader can take from it, especially if they are in recovery, as well as dealing with whatever they can to continue to thrive without the challenges that they may, continue to face day to day. So that being said, John, do you have any thoughts on how you wrote the book or why you did? Was it, I know you said your wife and daughter said you should tell your story, but how did it help you also in creating a schematic, a roadmap of sorts to help keep yourself in recovery and continue to thrive? And how do you educate others to do the same?
It's really simple. I took a chronological approach, mostly. I don't jump around timelines much at all. But it was my daughter, really, even much more than my wife. It's my daughter who, I read a book called The Tender Bar, which George Clooney read and he loved, and he turned it into a movie. He was not in the movie. It starred Ben Affleck. The book did much better than the movie. The book was terrific. But there was a page in that book where the boy is waiting for his dad, the young man, and it's a true story. It's a memoir about a kid who grew up in Manhasset and in a bar, and it was like telling my story, yet the same but different, And there was one page one story where he's waiting for his dad, and I have a gut wrenching story in my book about how my dad promised to take me to a Yankee game, and I'm downstairs waiting in the lobby. I'm 10 years old or so. I'm downstairs waiting in the lobby for him to show up, and he's, we're going to a 1 o'clock or a 2 o'clock game, and he's late. And I'm buzzing upstairs. There are no cell phones at the time. I'm buzzing upstairs to my mother. Did Dad call? And first he called and said he was going to be late. And then 20 minutes later, he's not there. I buzz again, and I can hear her getting more drunk with every time I buzz her. And he never shows. And that kind of stuff that a child experiences kind of creates a hole in his soul. And,
Yes.
I really, it does. It creates a void and pain. And you want to smother that pain. You want to numb yourself to episodes like that. And there were many episodes like that. That one in particular always stuck out with me. And I identified with the author who wrote about his experience. It was very similar. And there are other people. I'm not alone. I mean, I've had a lot of adversarial stuff. Life comes at us all. And that's my expression. It comes at us all.
Right.
And we have to learn how to deal with it and really appreciate when life is not coming at us with difficulties and challenges,
Yeah.
And I do want to share that. That's my goal, is to share that at this stage of my life. And my daughter, really, I was telling her about the book that I had read, and she said, "Dad, you have to tell your story. You have to tell your story." And she goes, "It's such a success story." She goes, "But it's more than our rags to riches. It's really, you're going to inspire people." And I hope I have, and I hope I do. I hope the reader identifies with it, gets inspired by it, and realizes that no matter what your situation, no matter where you come from, no matter what you've been through, you can be okay. You can thrive.
Nice, nice. Now, when you go through your story, like you told in the beginning of the show, where do you get to the point where you show how your aggressive stance for working and finding your own money made you come up with I'm going to become sober because this business has to come through, hence the birth of Men on the Move. When did that pivot point come from you in your life?
In September of '85, while I was still drinking, I got a business license, and it was my friend John Tarko, who was in the book.
Okay.
It's quite a story himself, and he encouraged me to start my business. He had a small van and trucking thing. He goes, "We'll share jobs. We'll do this. We'll work together with them, and we'll do that." And that's what I did. It was really him who talked me into doing it, and that's what I did. And it took off. I mean, it was clear. I got sober months later, and I worked. When I first wrote the book, I found myself writing too many times. I worked like a maniac. So I had to go back and edit that out because I had written that too often.
Incredible.
Yeah, but I did work very hard. So when I first got sober, when I first went in, all I did was work. I worked 360 days a year for sure. The first several years, really did not take any vacations. It wasn't even like much of a consideration. Maybe 1 or 2 long weekends or something like that. But I worked 350, 60 days a year for sure. And I paid back all the money I owed. I owed a lot of money. I was in debt up to my eyeballs, credit cards, people, and paid back all that money. And I started building a client, just schlepping furniture for people.
Very nice.
Uninsured, pretty illegitimate, but I was doing legitimate work. I got out. I was well intended, so I got out of bed in the morning. I wasn't going to screw anybody, and I just wanted to have the phone ring, and the phone started to ring. The phone kept ringing because we did the right thing.
Very nice. I gather when you were creating Men on the Move, you also got yourself your lawyers and your clients and your whole business infrastructure while maintaining sobriety, and you were able to really find a volume business over the last 30 or so years, right?
Yes, yeah. My wife was really instrumental at the time. She had a high-level administrative job at the age of 25, working for an institution called European American Bank. And that she was really not in bed, and I talked her into. We argue over this today. I tell her, I talked her into leaving there, and she says, "Well, I left on my own." I said, "Let's take this movie thing and not look back," and we did. And she brought a lot of structure and to the company. My wife is the CFO. She hates when I say this, so but let's say it anyway. I call my wife my controller with or without the P.
No, understood. I mean, you do dedicate the book after her, so obviously your guide. She had your back. She was your guiding light. She was your definite support system. I mean, it's inevitable that no matter what your illness is, whether it's alcoholism or epilepsy or cancer or whatever, you always need that one person that is your inspiration that keeps you going. Because I'm sure that when you've already described how the beginning of your life was with the chaos in with your parents and your sisters, it could have gone any way for you. And you just had those small little nuggets of gestures, like that guy with the $2 that made you buy that pizza. And of course, meeting your wife eventually, that you just know where things need to be grounded and you just anchor down on them as best as you can while you're still dealing with all the challenges you continue to face, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. Well,
I'm going through a lot of things right now. My wife is right there with me.
exactly. I can honestly say my last 6 months has as not as challenging. It's been challenging on a different level, but I've had to make if I do this, then this gets lost. If I do that, then that gets lost. It's like it's like an extreme choice mode that I'm in right now. I would say survival mode, but I think that with some of the support systems, including the people of talkradio.nyc, I've been able to get some balance back. And I'm looking at the next 5 months or the remaining, what was it? The remaining 5 months of 2025. My God, look at that, half over. That there's going to be more of a balance, that I'm going to see an upward trajectory. And I will say, in looking at your book, I'm taking some inspiration from your story. We're about to take our second break. So that being said, I'm going to start advertising features of your book on our commercial break. I will put the phone down. You probably won't see this, but you will see it on the copy of this video once it posts on YouTube. But I'm going to be doing all the promo work on your music and on your book at the moment. Okay, John? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned right here on Frank About Health with Mr. John Beyer. There he is on WhatsApp. Right here on talkradio.nyc and on our YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch channels. We'll be back in a few.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
It takes strength to admit we are powerless. We are powerless. It takes strength to admit we are powerless. We are powerless. What can I see? It has nothing to do with anyone but me, with anyone but me. Blaming everyone, blaming everything, but ain't blaming me, ain't blaming me. What?
Frank, I'm in.
Yes, I see. It's perfect. Now I'm back to the main screen for all of us to be together. All right, halfway through the show, right when the music started, you see, music does create change for the good.
It's healing.
It is very healing. You know, it's kind of funny. I've had technical challenges on this show for the last 3 weeks in a row. And I think it's telling me something. It's telling me I got to be more creative on how I do these shows going forward.
So it's not just me. I suggest you that when you're interviewing anybody with gray hair, you triple, quadruple check it.
Oh, no, believe me. Sometimes it's me because, like, for example, 2 weeks ago, I had another guest on the show who had a book on interior design. She was dealing through grief. And at the same time, she was showing me the before and after pictures of her home that she inherited when her parents died. The first pictures were, you know, they just need a lot of improvement. And the after pictures showed when she was enlightened. So I'm enjoying all the pictures, but nobody can see them. So then I figured, okay, I'll show them during the commercial break. But in all honesty, I'm going to have her come back probably next month, and we're going to do an entire show just
do it again.
Yeah, but to really do justice on the book, because the book is an example of creativity that she used to reclaim her resiliency and her identity after being enmeshed in a lot of grief over the loss of her parents that she was doing caregiving for. In your case, you were living a life undergoing tremendous challenges. And I know one thing you didn't mention was a car accident you were in, you know, so to do all of that and at the same time have a thriving business, I could see how music was your outlet, similar to what I mentioned about that interior design book. So I started that whole segment talking about your song Powerless. And when we spoke this morning, you'd mentioned you wanted the audience to hear it. Do you have any thoughts on why that song in particular in relation to either maintaining sobriety or the development of your business or even other aspects that are somehow encaptured within this book? Would you like to share with the audience what that song really drives home?
So, it's interesting. Powerless is the first song that I wrote and released. It's not the first song I wrote. It's the first song that I wrote and really produced and released publicly. And I did that. That song was written for a play. I have this idea. It's more than an idea. I've been working on this play called We. And the reason why it's called We is because we is the first word of the first step in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. And what I point out in that play is that it's not finished yet, but I'm going to finish it. What I point out in that play is that all the 12-step programs, whether or not it's Gamblers Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, or Sexaholics Anonymous, or Readers Anonymous, the 12 steps that are in those come from the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's called We, and Powerless is very personal. I mean, I wrote every lyric. I'm the one. I do have a collaborator, Benjamin Hay, and he helped produce the song. But the song is mine in the heart and soul. It's not my best vocalization. It's not my best singing, but it's okay. It's good. It's good enough. I'm very proud of that song. And I've gotten phone calls from people and texts and emails on social media from people that I listen to your song every day. It helps me stay sober. And
Very nice.
Man, I got to tell you, that's the most rewarding thing in life.
I understand it. It gets you right here. Doesn't matter if it doesn't fill your wallet. It fills
Yes,
your
I
heart.
don't care about that.
Keeps your motivation going. I totally relate to that. I mean, it's kind of interesting where I found myself in a situation 6 months ago where I was really thriving a lot with I wouldn't call them my former sponsor, but they were pretty much on the road with me with Frank About Health since 2021. And due to our interesting election that we had in November, they bowed out of working with me. I mean, healthcare advocacy was now taboo, so it knocked me out a little bit stunned. Like I wasn't totally shocked or disappointed because I was already thriving on legitimate healthcare content that people were wanting to know. But they had funded a piece of content that I was about to release in January or February to really show the platform that I was building in conjunction with them. So when they pulled out, what I didn't realize is that they also pulled out of the platform. So I found myself having to kind of crash and burn, but I wasn't burning. I still had my audience. I still had my support network. But I guess you could say the marketing fuel or the big mouthpiece that this sponsor was going to bring became very, very minuscule. And on top of it, one of my dearest friends and partners in this also died.
Oh boy.
So I'm losing my personal advocate and my brand advocate within a month apart. And I was like, talk about the song Powerless. I did feel that way. But for some reason, I don't know. I can call this and I don't mean to just redirect the conversation towards my circumstances. I'm actually reflecting on what you've been saying. The thing is that during that same time, while my business partner is out of the game or out of the equation, and my friend passes on, I have to put my cousin in a nursing home with Alzheimer's disease. And she's only 65. So, and I'm not even next of kin. I'm the proxy, but there was nobody else to do it. But I think I was able to put all that energy into putting her where she needed to be to come back and own my own power again, regardless of the fact that I no longer had my friend or my business partner. And then I realized that talkradio.nyc had been my cornerstone since the very beginning, regardless. They're the ones that welcomed me back and glided me back in. So I can see what you're saying in the song that, if someone praises you and even if it doesn't give you money, but it reaches your heart, that's exactly what I felt with talk radio. Instead of feeling like, wow, I've disappointed them all. Everything that I've been trying to build with the network is now gone. No, it wasn't gone at all. But that's the illusion that I guess a lot of us, if we're dealing with whether it's stress or addiction or in your case, alcoholism or whatever may have been going on, we have to stop relying on the illness as what defines us and more of what's within us that we can do to overcome it all. So maybe that's the way I'm translating your song,
Okay.
because you're not saying that we're powerless, really.
No.
You're saying that when we feel powerless, we have to reach for that thing within us that brings back the power. Am I right?
The lyric says, "When I say I'm powerless, it sets me free."
Yeah, because you see the freedom in the choices you can make to get out of that feeling of powerless.
That's right, and you're owning it. When you own it and recognize it, then you can make choices. You can act on it.
Exactly. And by the way, I don't know if I had told you this when we first met, but I spent 10 years at Sony Music. So I have my whole music industry background and invested in what I've already seen in your Spotify catalog. I do think you have a lot of poignant material out there. My first question is, do you have your stuff published? Because
yeah, sure. I mean, what do you mean by published? In what way?
in other words, you can license it out to CDs or to organizations or streamers or well, better yet, maybe you can even create a soundtrack to the book.
Well, it's funny you should say that because just yesterday, there is on the John Beyer Spotify playlist, there is a live a little better with all of the songs that had the titles for every chapter. So we have White Room by Clapton, we have Piano Man by Billy Joel, we have I Can See Clearly Now by Nash, we have People by Barbra Streisand. We have all that on the playlist, the 12 songs. And by the way, it was 12, there's 12 chapters in the book, which is a complete accident. That was not meant, I didn't plan to have 12 chapters like there are 12 steps. I did, that was kismet. That was a little,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's a little scary.
I like that. That. I don't consider that a coincidence. It's a destiny play.
So I'm about to record the audio book for this, and what I decided to do is I went into the studio yesterday and with Benjamin Hay, my colleague, and Arthur Pingray, our producer, and we played the piano, and I sing the 2 or 3 lines of the beginning of each chapter of the song that heads up each chapter as
nice.
Then I'm going to read it. That was a lot of fun doing it. It was exhausting also. It was only 12 songs with just a few lines each, but I was tired at the end of the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That does sound very inspiring. I would then ask, is like these 12 chapters or these 12 songs, are you going to be the one to sing them? You're probably going to get the licensing rights of the lyrics?
No, you don't have to if you cover a song. If you just cover a song, but if you use the exact music that the original artist did, then you have to.
Mechanical royalties, yep.
Yes, exactly. Then you're paying dear money. then you're paying crazy money. Yeah. What's her name? The great singer, the girl, Ariana Grande. She's got a great voice. She did Do Re Mi, from The Sound of Music. She made no money on that. She gave all I think she made zero. She gave all the royalties because she just used part of it in her version of it, which is kind of fun. It's funky. It's very different. But she had to pay everything really to them. I think she made nothing on it. And she has more. I think she has more Instagram followers than anybody else on the planet or something like that. But so that's very interesting that she made no money from it. That's how much she had to pay for the rights to a song from The Sound of Music.
Well, like we've had in this episode of Frank About Health, all of our technology challenges, I would have to say that has been what kind of changed the music industry. She may have had to put so much money in to not get paid on the song, but it did bring out her presence. And
Oh,
as you know,
yeah.
she's about to do a sequel to one of the biggest movies last year, Wicked. So
It helped the rest of the sales of her.
correct. It's like if it didn't impact her directly with the actual music, she's getting the return on her other projects. We're about to take our final break. Again, just like what I told the other guests that had the technical difficulties, I will have you on the show again. In fact, on the final segment of the show, I'm going to talk about the future of not just your music and of this book, but of Frank About Health. And I'm going to, on air, make a proposal to you with regards to your music, and you'll hear about that when we return. All righty. That all being said, please stay tuned right here on Frank About Health, both on talkradio.nyc and on our socials, and we will be back in a few.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, a.k.a. the Corporate Cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtej Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
I already saw more technology difficulties occurring, so I decided not to play that song, which you said was an upbeat song. I know Powerless was your big track, but we are in the last segment of the show, and we have another show coming up in about 10 minutes. But ladies and gentlemen, please listen to the music of John Beyer. His website is johnbeyermusic.com. It also discusses the book, Live a Little Better Life. Live a Little Better. His journey from sobriety to success. And simultaneously, also listen on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, and Apple Music. And you will see those 4 tracks, including the songs Powerless and To Love a Little More. What was the name?
Love You More.
Love You More. And then 2 other songs. One of them, I think, is after your daughter, right?
No. The other songs are Rat-a-tat-tat and it's like it's really not about my daughter. It is about a father-daughter relationship, but our relationship is nothing like that. It's fictional, but that's a fun song. But the thing about the music is that it's so diverse. I mean, Rat-a-tat-tat is a hip hop song that my collaborator Benjamin Hay performs, but the song was my idea, and the lyrics started with me, and it's an anti-gun violence hymn or prayer. And it was very personal because, like I said, I grew up in Left Rack, which became a rough environment. He grew up in the projects in Brooklyn, which was a very rough environment. And so we both experienced that to some extent. In my book, I was almost being forced into being in a gang at one point, and I had guns in my hand and stuff like that. Yeah, and Live a Little Better. So, I think about that, and I could have been a criminal, and here I am. All I want to do now, particularly in this phase of my life, in the last 10, 15 years, I just want to help people. and share love. So yeah, the music's diverse. The other songs are pop and ballads, but every song has a message. And I like to think that you can hear every lyric. Maybe that's because I'm a little older, but that's important to me.
No, I totally understand. I mean, if anything, it sounds like to me that between your journey of survival all the way to success, it was music that was your through line in all of that. Am I correct?
That's correct. My mom used to make me sing when she was sometimes drunk, actually. She would make me sing to Andy Williams and Frank Sinatra, a song after song after song. And I loved the attention, I realized. And then when things were really painful, we had a terrace in that apartment in Left Rack City, Queens. And that terrace, I used to go out there with my little Panasonic cassette radio and try to time the songs and press the two buttons at the same time to record them. That's what you used to have to do back then. Boy, you spoiled people with streaming today. And it was very difficult to record a song. So, and that was my refuge. It was like a sanctuary for me. Music became a sanctuary for me and healing. And I enjoyed singing, and I loved it. And I would really hear the music. And I think that's where my love of music comes from that time of my life.
No, I can relate in many ways, considering that when I had left college quite some time ago, I was working for a bank, and it was killing me on many different levels, including the lack of sleep. But in order to get out of that, I became a DJ and a club promoter. And then eventually, when they laid me off, I said, now I can party harder. And I ended up working for Sony Music for 10 years. So I consider that when music is actually carrying you to your destiny, then it's for a purpose, and a real solid one at that. That brings me now to the part that I left off in the third segment about an offer. My 150th show of Frank About Health is next week. And while I'm still planning on the episode as we speak, I have to talk to the engineer and the other people at the network to figure out how the show is going to come across. I'm going to use it as a time to launch the very project I had been working on with that business partner. And it is a documentary called Being Frank for a Healthy Future. All throughout that time, I had always wanted a song to really claim the narrative of what really was my story of advocacy while dealing through COVID, while dealing through my cousin's healthcare crisis, my father's recovery from cancer, not to mention what we were all dealing with in terms of, misinformation in healthcare and so forth and so on. So that being said, I'm going to send you a copy of the documentary to look over. And if you're open to it, of course, we'll figure what works and what doesn't work. I'd like to either work with one of the songs that you already have put on Spotify, or maybe there's another song that you could think of that would really amplify the message.
Okay, I would love that, and I'm flattered and I am honored. I would love that. I don't have to think much about that at all. Yes, the answer is yes. I am flattered and honored. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you. Thank you in advance, because I know that, one of the executive producers, who's also my business partner, Jose Dennis, has a beautiful singing voice. And there's a scene in the documentary where he's singing to my mother for my mother's 80th birthday. But because of publishing issues, he couldn't use the vocal track. So you see him singing, but you hear the narrator talking about what's going on. And then there was another song in particular that used to be used on the show Grey's Anatomy, which I'm a big fan of. And it's actually my ringtone also. But when I heard the price is $50,000 to get the rights, of course, I'm not using that. Although, I mean, of course, if money does come into it, I will fit the bill. I mean, it's an issue where I'm promoting a big advocacy platform going into the next 150 episodes of Frank About Health. But more importantly, because we are at a time in our healthcare system and in our social system where there is mainly disruption, no matter where you turn. If you're an elder, if you're a child, if you're a woman, if you're dealing with chronic illness, if you're dealing with Medicare and Medicaid, I mean, there's nothing but disruption. So it really has made me see the value of this show and any other healthcare advocacy platform, which this actually serves as one, especially in the areas of alcoholism and autism. I think it's a story that when you see it, when I send it to you, you will see how much I'm really speaking to all advocates out there. And we have to just keep all the information consistent with the truth and not with whatever rhetoric we're hearing every single day today in the media and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's a little bit of my view. We're about 3 minutes to ending, but if anything, again, you will be on the show again. Probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I have to figure that out in the time.
That's terrific.
But I figure if there was any one thing that we were to really dig into when we get together next, would it be about details in this book that maybe we have not said throughout the hour? Or would it
Yeah,
be some other
yeah.
information?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more that we could talk about within the book. There's surprising subjects that I go into a little bit. I touch on. You write your memoir, and it's stream of consciousness. My son and his autism probably took up the most ink, but alcohol runs through the entire, and recovery runs through the entire book. And my daughter inspiring me. The first song I wrote was called Not Just Any. And it was my daughter's wedding. What I did was I decided to take piano lessons and realized I didn't know how to play the piano. And I then wound up writing a song. And that song I sang, and we played it at my daughter's wedding. And I danced to her. I didn't sing it live, but I danced to that song. And she got me started with this. So there's a lot that we could talk about. It really is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My daughter
in fact,
really inspired me.
there is a person that I had on my original iteration of Frank About Health in 2016 who was a music therapist at NYU Langone Health. Maybe I can get him to join us on the show as well. It would be getting to get to see his view on how music serves as a therapeutic angle and everything you've been through. I mean, I know if anything, one of the things that I had read in the book that we didn't get to cover in detail was that, while you were overcoming all your challenges and in your sobriety mode, that's when you were facing the challenge of your son with autism and how you were able to fight through it with your newfound resiliency. So that is something I definitely would look forward to talking with you about further. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to sign off. Just remember, everybody, stay tuned for the next episode on talkradio.nyc at 6 o'clock of Success with a Splash with Bruce Kramer. But at the same time, next week will be the 150th episode of Frank About Health. I'm not sure exactly if it's going to be a panel discussion or if it's just going to be myself talking about that documentary that is going to be the impetus of how this show moves forward. Thank you again, John, for being on the show in no matter what format it was, the telephone, WhatsApp, or Zoom. Thank you, Jesse, behind the scenes, for all your support. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back next week. Stay tuned for the next show and see you then. Bye.